what sort of pride does she have in the fact that she is the only Prime Minister since the Second World War who's presided over a situation in which teenage children sit homeless and hungry in the Dickensian streets of Britain?
Mr. Speaker, if the honourable gentleman listened to the autumn statement, he will know that extra sums have been allocated to help homeless and roofless. He also will know there's something like 1,900,000 more homes than there were, in fact, during the lifetime of the last Labour government. But I was dealing with industry. Let me go on dealing with industry. Output and investment are at an all-time record, and profitability is higher than for 20 years. And of course you need high profitability. Where else are you to get high investment from? Where else are you to get the income which enables you to do better for the social services? What is more, Mr. Speaker, people want a stake in success. More people than ever own their own homes and own shares. And more people are running their own business. This year, an extra new business has been started up every 7 minutes. The ownership, one moment, I'll give away in a moment, the ownership of property is no longer the privilege of the few. We've extended ownership ever more widely to the overwhelming majority of the nation, giving them the self-confidence and pride that comes from property and choice. The old class-based labour order is being replaced by one based on merit, ability and effort. That is the new Britain. That is the Britain of the 1990s. I give way to the honourable member.
Mr. Stuart Bell.
I'm grateful to the Prime Minister. If industry is so satisfied with her performance, why can she explain the CBI yesterday saying that all profits are being wiped out by losses on the exchange rate? The exchange rate goes down, profits are wiped out. That is what the CBI are saying yesterday.
That is nonsense. The honourable member will know that CBI has two views about exchange rate. It suits some industries. It suits some industries. It suits some industries to have a high exchange rate because it means that the raw materials they import are of a less in price here. It suits some to have a lower exchange rate because they think it helps them with exports. The only real security for industry is if it's really efficient by virtue of its own management and by virtue of the design of its own products. Mr. Speaker, far-reaching reforms in education and training are widening opportunity even further. I understand the Right Honourable Gentleman, the Leader of the Opposition, told his party conference education and training are now... Please let me get on with a few more sentences before I give way again. I understand that the Right Honourable Gentleman told his conference that education and training are now the commanding heights of the economy. Under this government, they always have been. Let's look at the facts on education. It's absolutely vitally important for our future. The national curriculum is making sure that every child has a really good basic education. The new GCSE has been an outstanding success and has brought better exam results. And in spite of what the Honourable Gentleman said, there are 210,000 more students in higher education than there were in 1979. For every 4 people taking degrees when Labour left office, there are now more than 5. And the last Labour government didn't leave as much of a legacy on training either. Our approach has been much more fundamental, to provide good quality training which will put people into real jobs. It was this government which set up the youth training scheme. It was this government which set up employment training, the largest adult training programme this country has ever known. Of course, the Labour Party and their trade union paymasters did their best to frustrate both training schemes, and they denied people these opportunities. But in spite of their efforts, over 500,000 people have joined employment training, and well over 2 million young people have benefited from the youth training scheme. I give way to the honourable gentleman from Liverpool.
Eric Heffer.
The Right Honourable Lady earlier talked about people owning their own houses and how much better off they were under this government. Would she like to explain to my constituent who came to see me on Saturday at my surgery who was a member of the armed forces, actually finished in the armed forces and went and worked on an oil rig, bought his own home. His son met with a serious accident, finally had to give up work in order to look after that child, is now being evicted from his home because he cannot pay the mortgage payments. How does she explain to my constituent and to thousands like him how much better off it is under this government?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman is correct. There will always be people who cannot cope because they have particular circumstances which are adverse at the time. But that does not take away the enormous increase in owner occupation. 2 out of every 3 families now own their own homes. That would never have happened under Labour. 2 out of every 3 families. And the exceptional case, which is hard and which gives great cause for sympathy, does not take away that enormous achievement, nor the fact that 9 million people now own shares. Now, I was talking about training, how the trade unions have tried to frustrate the opportunities. Please, I would like to get on and make a little more of my own speech, then I will give way later. I was talking about training and how the trade unions have tried to frustrate the training schemes, but in spite of that they haven't succeeded. Employers too are investing heavily in training Britain's workforce to the tune of £18 billion a year. And that's on top of the £31 billion they invested last year in plant and machinery. Yes, of course we must do better still if we're to compete with Germany and Japan. And that's why we are developing a network of training and enterprise councils throughout the country with business in the lead, because it is business that knows how to run business and business that can work with the universities to do training, and not the arrogance of socialist politicians who think that they can run everything. And, Mr. Speaker, I will not give the detailed figures, but this government has devoted extra funds to research. Thanks to the growth in our national income, the government will be able to spend nearly £3 billion on civil science and technology next year. And the science budget will be 25% higher in real terms than under the last Labour government. This is why there is great strength in our economy. We have growth. We have, in fact, excellent investment, good profits, output higher than ever before, a high rate of new businesses, and a good rate of investment on research. Now, which one wanted to come first? The gentleman in the gangway. Right.
The Margaret Thatcher.
I'm very grateful to the Prime Minister giving way in such a gracious way there. Could I just take her back to the point that she was making about education as a source of strength in the economy? And she painted a picture that all was well with the education system. Could she explain to parents in London boroughs such as Tower Hamlets why their children are being sent home from school because there are no teachers available to them?
Mr. Speaker, what a pity they're not in my constituency. I'm sure they'd do very much better. We have the very best education. We have a very good local authority who runs our... We have a very good local authority that runs our education system superbly, and we have the best results. But in fact, as I was pointing out, and will point out again to the honourable gentleman, there are more teachers in proportion to pupils than at any previous time in our history, and there is more being spent on each individual pupil than ever before. And I would have thought with more teachers and more resources, the local authorities really could manage those resources better and give a better education to the children. My point? No, may I please go on? Mr. Speaker, I do have to lay out the government's policies. I will give way from time to time. I would just like to get a little bit of my own speech out between interruptions.